Well, I guess that's corrected. So everything else seems to be in order. Uh, as I said, that's why we're upgrading the studio and getting ready to do some things to give me some backup here, some technical support that will help avoid all of these kinds of issues that we, some of which are self-inflicted, some of which I do myself. But good morning, everybody. I have not been with you live this week because on Mondays we play the sermon from Sunday. Yesterday, I was with James Robison of Life Today. Life Outreach is a wonderful program, and I had an opportunity to do tape 2 programs with James Robison, James and Betty, and those will not air for another 4 to 6 weeks. So it'll be sometime in May when those programs air. But please be praying for us because James did an outstanding job explaining my book. I mean, he and his staff have gone through my book, and they were ready. They were loaded for bear. And he did an outstanding job of interviewing me and of explaining what the book is all about. And I think there'll be a lot of people whose eyes will be open to the importance of my book after. I mean, James sold the book, frankly, better than I ever have. I wrote it, but he did a much better job explaining, because he and Betty both talked about what the book meant to them, what reading it did for them. And so, folks, to just remind you all, the book is available. In fact, he's going to give away the book to people who donate to a feeding program that he's got going in Mozambique. But this is the book, Sweet Land of Liberty, Reflections of a Patriot Descended from Slaves, in which I talk about what it's going to take to secure a future for this country. And it is not in racial tribalism and in all this division that the left is trying to stoke. You can get the book wherever books are sold. You can get it at a 15% discount at my publisher's website, and that's faithfultext.com. faithfultext.com. But if you want to support me, and I'm a little bit behind, folks, because we had some books that we had to get shipped from the warehouse to me. We finally got those books. I'll be signing a bunch of books this week. Got a bunch of books backed up for Patriot Partners. So if you sign up as a Patriot Partner, you haven't got your book yet, it's on the way. Believe me, not a single person is going to be left out. But if you want to sign up as a Patriot Partner to receive a free signed numbered copy of my book, go to standamerica.us, standamerica.us, sign up as a Patriot Partner for a minimum of $25 a month, and I will send you a signed numbered copy of my book, Sweet Land of Liberty, Reflections of a Patriot Descended from Slaves. I also want to mention, by the way, May the 16th, it's coming up fast. May the 16th is our Stand Awards dinner. And I hope that you will come or support the effort. It is our biggest fundraiser of the year. It's going to be a magnificent event. We're giving out the George Washington Award for taking a stand. There he is, the father of our country. The George Washington Award for taking a stand this year is going to Allen West, retired Lieutenant Colonel and former Congressman. The Honorable Michelle Bachmann, former Congresswoman, now Dean of the Robertson School of Government at Regent University. Dr. Alveda King, niece of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and a pro-life activist who has been on the front lines of this issue for decades, and often to the consternation of a lot of the Democrats and leftists around her who believe she should be taking a different position. But she has been steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. And then last but certainly not least, Andrew Womack. Andrew Womack has a ministry that spans the entire globe. He's got offices all over the world. He reaches 5 billion people. And many people with that size ministry completely stay away from the social, political, spiritual issues confronting our country. They're not touching them with a 10-foot pole. Andrew Womack has waded right in because he's committed to the teaching of the Bible and to what the Bible says. And he has not been willing to compromise that in order to keep, maintain, expand, whatever he has in mind to do for his ministry. In fact, he said by taking a stand, it hasn't hurt his ministry, it's helped it. For one thing, it brings the favor of God when you do that. But the other thing is there are people who are hungry to hear the truth. And so they're out there building dormitories. I mean, they've got I think $200 million worth of buildings that they're planning to build in the next 10 years. It's a magnificent 500-acre campus. If you ever get a chance to go out there for an event, you ought to do that. In fact, let me mention to you, I will be with Andrew Womack, not at the Caris campus, but I will be with him on April 13th, 14th, and 15th at the Chicago Gospel Truth Conference at the Westin Chicago Lombard. The Chicago Gospel Truth Conference at the Westin Chicago Lombard. That's apparently at 70 Yorktown Center in Lombard, Illinois. I will be with him there, and I'm speaking on Friday night, Friday morning, Friday evening, and Saturday morning. So I'm speaking 3 times out at Andrew Womack's event on April the 14th and the 15th. I think it starts on the 13th. So if you're in the area, or even if you're not, and you just want to be there, come on out. We'd love to have you. At any rate, with those things out of the way, of course, the big news story, the story that's been dominating the news really all week, is the indictment of former President Donald Trump. And you probably heard pretty much everything that can be said about this issue, but I want to add a new wrinkle to it, something that I haven't heard anybody else say. That's one of the things I try to do is sort of bring a new angle, give you something new to think about rather than just repeating everything you're already hearing. I mean, you don't really need me to do that. So I pray that God uses me to kind of bring a fresh perspective and raise issues that perhaps others have not read or others have not raised or few have. Here's the issue that nobody has raised. Think about this. The left says that America is a racist country, that America is a white supremacist country, that every white person has white privilege and every black person is a victim, and that you can't even be racist if you're black because you have no power. Only white people have power. White people can be racist no matter how powerless they are, no matter how poor they are, no matter how bad their lives may be, no matter how impoverished they may be, no matter how uneducated they are. White people can be racist because they've got power. So ridiculous. It just sounds absurd to even say it. But black people, no matter how powerful, no matter how wealthy, no matter how influential, they can't be racist because, after all, they don't have any power. See, the left's whole construct is a denial of reality as we know it. But here's the point I want to get to that nobody has raised. If America is indeed, as the left says it is, as the Democrat Party says it is, if America is a white racist, white supremacist country, explain to me how a black local district attorney, and remember, he is a local DA. That means he is district attorney for Manhattan. He has no authority or power other than as a district attorney and other than in that small geographical region that we call Manhattan. So if a black local district attorney can cause a former president of the United States to get on his plane, fly from Florida to New York, stand up in a courtroom to have to plead not guilty to a bunch of, forgive the pun, trumped up charges, and has to answer to a relatively powerless, insignificant black district attorney, how does that work? How does that happen in a quote-unquote white supremacist country? How's that even possible? How's it possible to call 38,000 police officers to work apparently 5 days straight overtime trying to make sure that the situation was secure for a former president's appearance, How is it possible to wrangle his entire legal team to have to show up to answer these charges? How is it possible to have the whole country talking about how this radical leftist black district attorney is suing a former president, not suing, forgive me, prosecuting a former president of the United States? How is any of that possible in a white supremacist country? Because America is not a white supremacist country. That is a lie out of the pit of hell. Have there been white supremacists in our country? Of course there have been. Do they exist today? Yeah, I'm sure there's some out there. Is that the way our country operates? Absolutely not. We are a nation of laws and not of men. And even when you have a George Soros sycophant puppet like Alvin Bragg doing the bidding of his master and doing the bidding of his corrupt party to try to destroy a president or destroy his chances to be president again, even when you have a corrupt, depraved idiot like that, who is nothing but a local DA, the fact that he is black and the president is white doesn't change anything, because Bragg has the mechanisms of the legal system at his disposal, and even when he's abusing them, even a president of the United States has got to respond to his call. I rest my case. There's nothing white supremacist about America, because, in other words, even an idiot black district attorney can act like an idiot and, frankly, in my view, like a racist, and go after a former president of the United States, because our legal system allows it. Now, I believe these charges are going to be dismissed, or that Donald Trump would be found not guilty. And I do believe that Alvin Bragg, at least for the time being, has helped Donald Trump. He's helped him to raise money. He's helped to raise his profile. I mean, he has 100% name recognition already, but he's helped to raise his profile. I don't believe, as others do, that this is somehow determinative of what's going to happen in the race, folks. He's not going to be back in court until December. This is only April. So now you basically go back, as soon as this dies down, you basically go back to the campaign as usual. And you've got 4 other candidates in the race. One guy I'd never heard of. But obviously you got Nikki Haley, you got Vivek Ramaswamy, you've got Asa Hutchinson has jumped into the race. And there's a 4th person. Who is that person? There's somebody else who has jumped in. But I'm pretty sure you got 5 candidates already. So, and there are going to be others. No question about that. There are going to be others. I know what some of you are thinking. Will I be one of them? Well, you know, I tell you, somebody obviously needs to talk about this issue of race in our country, and frankly, how it's being used to poison everything. And it really is poisoning everything. I mean, let's face it. One of the most vicious, virulent, and effective attacks on Donald Trump has been that he's a racist. That's been the mantra. And evaluating someone like me is also racial, because they would say about me, well, he's not really black. Isn't that what Joe Biden said? If you don't support me, then you ain't black. Trying to sound like whatever his caricature is of the way a black person sounds. I mean, these people are racist to the core, but they're using, as I say in my book, the velvet glove of racist condescension, patting black people on the head like they're pets. Oh, it's just disgusting. And let me say one other thing. I did allude to it, but let me say one other thing about Alvin Bragg. Then I want to talk about another issue. The person that ought to be investigated is George Soros. Because remember, I told you, I don't have a theory about why he should be prosecuted. But I tell you what, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I just smell corruption. He gave Alvin Bragg $1 million. Now, I know it was legal and all of that, but this man is supposed to be enforcing the law. When you've got one person pulling his strings like that, is he enforcing the law, the laws of the land, or the laws of George Soros? Because here's what we know about this case. It's a nothing burger. First of all 34 counts are based upon his falsifying business records in the commission of a felony, in aiding in the commission of a felony. You get that? In other words, falsifying the business records is not in and of itself a felony. But falsifying business records, he is arguing, in aid of the commission of a felony are all felonies. 34 instances, all felonies. But here's what's weird. What's the felony that he claims that Donald Trump falsified records in commission of? Folks, we've never been told that. You know why? Because there's nothing. That indictment should spell out exactly what that underlying felony is. This is what leftists have been doing now for, frankly, a generation. There's no underlying crime, and they try to come up with some kind of process crime to get people that they don't like. So the FBI investigates you, and they find out that you didn't commit the crime they were alleging, but that you lied to them during the interview, so now they prosecute you for that. Well, wait. If there was no underlying crime, why are you prosecuting me because I allegedly gave you false information if I wasn't hiding a crime? It doesn't matter. Because they're going to get you one way or the other. As I've said before, folks, this is ultimately not about President Trump. This is about America. This is about having a criminal justice system that is dedicated to the enforcement of the law, not punishing political enemies. Alvin Bragg is nothing but a cheaply bought hack who is a sycophant and a puppet for George Soros, who's pulling his strings. And here's one theory of where there might be a crime. I would like to know, is he communicating with George Soros? Somebody gives you $1 million to put you in a particular office and you don't talk to them at all? I'd like to know whether he's talking to George Soros. And I'd like to know whether he and George Soros are engaged in some kind of conspiracy to subvert the law in furtherance of their political agenda. Now, I'm not sure what crime that would fit into. We know that's morally wrong. Finding a criminal theory for why it's wrong is something that some enterprising prosecutor would have to do. But I tell you what, it is definitely morally wrong. It is definitely ethically wrong. And I'd like to know, are they commiserating? Are they talking? Are they conspiring to subvert the rule of law in our country and turn the criminal justice system into nothing but a tool of George Soros to try to punish his enemies? That's one theory, because if that's what's happening, I'm sure there's a theory of law that would make both of them prosecutable for commission of a crime. I mean, there's one argument, basically interfering with an election, where they are engaging in fraudulent activity to interfere with the outcome of the election. The very thing that Bragg is basically accusing Trump of. I think that's what he and George Soros are doing here. Okay, let me leave that alone. Let me go to one other thing I've got to get out today. Folks, let me say something. I want this to be clear. Do you know I'd much rather be talking about American debt, taxes, the economy, bringing American manufacturing back to our country, I'd much rather be talking about bringing the federal bureaucracy to heel, dealing with the deep state, dealing with the tendency of the government to act in perpetuation of its own agenda rather than acting in accordance with the mandate given to a particular president to carry out the wishes of the American people, who are subverting those wishes and really turning us into a totalitarian state without saying so. Because basically government does whatever it wants to do, whether you like it or not. It's supposed to be your servant, and instead it's becoming your master. I'd much rather talk about all that stuff. But this homosexual gender confusion movement is so toxic, so poisonous to our culture, to the body politic, and so in your face that we've got to talk about it, because we've got to put a stop to it. Folks, it is a religious cult now. There's no other way you can describe it. Well, the whole left is. I said the Democrat Party is really a cult of the Antichrist. And I'm not saying every Democrat thinks that way, but these elites, they are Antichrist influenced people. They hate God, they hate Christianity, they hate the Bible, they hate Judeo-Christian ethics and morality. And that's why they hate the country, because the country is rooted and grounded in those principles. A new study is just, well, first of all, let me hit you with this one. Their language, because I'm no longer calling them trans, because you can't transition from a man to a woman. A woman can't become a man, and a man can't become a woman, period. Check this out, folks. The National Cancer Institute describes gender binary, which is a whole new term. You and I, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we never heard of this. Now it's a new thing, gender binary. They say gender binary describes the inaccurate concept that gender is categorized into only two distinct norms, man and woman. According to the National Cancer Society, that is an inaccurate concept. You see what I mean about this stuff insinuating itself into everything, that everything is political. What in the world is the National Cancer Institute, I should say institute, not society. What in the world is the National Cancer Institute doing opining about the nature of gender binary? I thought that the purpose of the National Cancer Institute was to work toward the treatment and cure of cancer. And instead, they're injecting cancer into the body politic. Say many gender expansive identities exist, either between or outside of this binary, such as gender fluid, gender queer, non-binary, or agender. See, this is what I mean. This is why we've got to talk about this. Because this stuff, it's really like, you know what it reminds me of? You watch these documentaries on people who commit crimes and commit murder. And one of the ways, women are particularly, women murderers, not women in general, but women murderers are particularly fond of this, using arsenic and poisoning people a little at a time, so that they just slowly get sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker. And when the patient dies, people say, yeah, well, he died after a long illness. And that was a long period of poisoning. That's what this stuff is to me. This is spiritual and political arsenic being injected into the veins of our political bloodstream. And it's slowly but surely killing our country. And from the National Cancer Institute, you get this garbage, which is irrelevant to them, A. B is wrong. They say it's an inaccurate concept. It's not an inaccurate concept. It is the only accurate concept of gender. There are two genders, male and female, period. Well, there's a study that just came out that shows that there is what they're calling a social contagion factor among teenagers. You know, more and more teenagers are identifying as quote unquote transgender. I would put it this way, more and more teenagers are gender confused. And in fact, they're saying that there's an increasing complaint, according to this abstract, of gender dysphoria. Who was it who did this study? But these folks studied something they call rapid onset of gender dysphoria among children. Rapid onset, ROGD, rapid onset of gender dysphoria among children. You realize this is threatening all of our children, our grandchildren, because they call this a social contagion. In other words, kids aren't being born this way. This is not truly happening to them. They're catching this from the culture that is pushing it. Dr. Lisa Littman hypothesized, quote, there has been an increase in gender dysphoria among adolescents, and this is especially true among adolescent females. They examined 1,655 parent reports investigating this theory, and they are finding that indeed, quote unquote, quote, the results of a survey of parents indicate that they believe that their children were suffering from rapid onset of gender dysphoria, meaning they literally go from one moment being normal to the next moment. Oh, I think I'm a different gender. Between ages of 11 and 21 years old, particularly, and again, 75% of these kids with rapid onset of gender dysphoria are females, which is what really interesting, right? Since there is, why aren't, see what happens when you throw out the concepts male and female, then you got to come right back to the concepts to talk about this issue. 75% of the young people who are suffering from this stuff are in fact females. So when asked if their child had a friend who came out as a transgender, 55.4% said yes. In other words, 55% of the parents whose children say they are a different gender than the one they're born have encountered a friend who also said that. And again, for females, the percentage is 61% of females who come out as quote unquote transgender have a friend, someone that they know, who has also come out. The number is lower for males, but then the number of males who are experiencing gender dysphoria is lower. And 42% of these people, it turns out, already had a formal mental health diagnosis and were already suffering from some kind of mental confusion or mental health issues. And by the way, the parents report that they felt pressured by the doctors and clinicians to use the alternative rather than psychological counseling and so forth, to go to supporting a transition. But they also found that the mental health of the children deteriorated after the transition. So after they made the switch over, instead of getting better, as we're told, oh, this is going to stop people from committing suicide, they get worse. They get worse. They say youth with mental health issues are especially likely to lack the judgment necessary to make these important medical transition decisions. And yet, most of the kids that they're treating for this so-called, who basically find that they think they're a different gender, already have mental health issues, which means you shouldn't be listening to them anyway. First of all, you shouldn't be listening to them because they're kids. I don't mean, when I say listening to them, I don't mean not listening to what they're saying, but you shouldn't be surrendering to their prescription for what they think they need. Now we add to that these kids have mental health issues prior to going through this, and you're going to listen to them about what their treatment should be? Well, what do you need psychologists and psychiatrists for? This is called the Trevor Project, and they found now that 26% of LGBTQ youth identify as non-binary. An additional 20% said they're not sure of their gender, basically. This is, let's face it, this thing is being pushed by the homosexual activists who want to fundamentally transform our culture. And folks, I can't not talk about this because, as I've said, this would be like going to your doctor with arsenic poisoning and saying to the doctor, but I don't want you to talk about arsenic. Well, I have to because that's your problem. No, I don't want to hear that. Don't want to hear that. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about x-rays. Okay, let's talk about aspirins. But oh my goodness, let's not talk about arsenic. Even though it's killing me. This stuff is killing our children. It's killing our society. And we've got to put a stop to it. And the way we're going to put a stop to it is we've got to do it on every level. No violence, of course, but we've got to debate it at the local level. We've got to have people running for office who are very clear about who they are and where they stand. We've got to have it at the presidential level. We've got to have it at the gubernatorial level, state level. We've got to have it at the mayor and city council level. And we've got to have it at the school board level. We've got to basically demand that this poison, this arsenic, no longer be fed to our children. And if children have a problem, let their parents talk to them and get them the treatment that they need. Stop injecting these kids with hormones. Stop cutting off their genitalia and cutting off their breasts and acting like you've done something heroic and laughing all the way to the bank. Listen, God bless each and every one of you. We're going to win this battle. We are. We're going to win this battle. You just have to stick with it. That's it. You just have to stick with it. Okay? Don't let anything dissuade you. Don't let anything discourage you. Don't let anything stop you. You just continue to press on. And we've got to have each other's backs. Because, of course, they're going to try to punish you, try to get you fired from your job, destroy your business, destroy your reputation, call you everything but a child of God. But they are of their father, the devil, and the deeds of their father they will do. He was a liar from the beginning. The truth is not in him. He comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And we have come to destroy the works of the devil and to seek and to save that which was lost. That's it. That's reality. And what they're selling is a bunch of garbage. By the way, people are still buying it, unfortunately. You see what happened in the election in Chicago. It's sad. It's a travesty. But we're going to wake folks up. We're going to wake black folks up in this country. And we're going to wake people of all backgrounds up in this country. And they're going to come back to the Judeo-Christian values and principles that made America great. Before I go, let me just say this. I'm over my time. But once again, I plead the blood of Jesus Christ over America from sea to shining sea, Alaska, Hawaii, every territory, every area of the globe where America holds sway, where our government is responsible for those people. In the name of Jesus, I plead the blood of Jesus Christ for an awakening in our country that would cause people to turn to God in repentance and ask for forgiveness and reject all of this godless, depraved, degenerate garbage that is being shoveled into the lives of our people, particularly our children. And it's going to happen. In fact, I really believe that we're already seeing the signs of it now. So you stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up. Because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side.